Welcome to the Booktopia podcast. I'm Nick Wasiliev and I'm recording this podcast on the lands of the Camaragal Nation, and I pay my respects to all elders past, present and emerging. This was and always will be Aboriginal land. Now, for any folks who follow me around in the online world, I'm an absolute sucker for all things rugby, and my guest today is a living legend in that space. Sonny Bill Williams is one of the most decorated and recognised athletes in the world, a dual international representative for New Zealand, a professional boxer. He's here today to talk about his brand new sports biography, You Can't Stop the Sun from Shining. Sonny Bill, welcome, man. It's great to have you here.
What an intro, bro. Great to be here. Thank you very much. And yes, shout out and great to see you. Paying our respects to the Indigenous people, the rightful owners of this land.
First of all, I know we're recording this in lockdown times. How you doing? Are you doing okay? How's your family doing?
Yeah, great. I think I don't mind lockdown, to tell you the truth. I just miss the kids being at school. I think just from a growth point of view, the kids need to be around each other and, just for that social growth. But, I'm grateful to be able to say I don't need to go to work. Financially, I'm in a good place, so alhamdulillah. But my heart goes out to all of those families, especially in my area where I live. A lot of people are struggling to make ends meet. So hopefully, God willing, lockdown will finish soon.
Yeah, I hope so. It is really tough times right now. But I know that, in these times, people really love stuff that brings them joy. And this autobiography that you've written, man, is awesome. You Can't Stop the Sun from Shining. I know before we kind of just dive into it very quickly, I want to know, why was now the right time for you to tell your story? What did you want to achieve with this book?
I just noticed that you're doing this interview. Is that your bed next to you?
Yeah, it's my bed next to me.
My man. The struggle's real, bro. The struggle's real. Look, I think throughout my career, I think ever since as early as 2009, 2010, I've been hit up to write an autobiography. And if I'm being honest, I never thought I would. Just through lack of time, I guess, and then also just through having that, having the self-esteem issues and all of that stuff from where I came from. I'm really thinking, do people really want to read about me or know my story? But, just having a bit of time now, I've finished playing 3 of the sports that I would have played. I'm still doing boxing, but have a lot more time. And, just speaking to a lot of youngsters out there, that have hit me up for a bit of advice and whatnot. The simplicity in how I try to live my life has really resonates with a lot of young athletes and young people in general. I've found. So I just thought, why not? I put my vulnerability hat on and stepped into that space and done it. Gave it my all for, I think it was 8 months. It was pretty full on. I got a really, really great writer in Alan Duff, who wrote the Once We're Warriors movie. So yeah, it just seemed like the right time, bro.
Yeah, it certainly does. And God, you've got a fascinating story, man. And I think so many people will love hearing about it. Like talking about growing up in a rugby league household, and you talk a lot about your mum and your dad and your brother. And you talk about your dad. You came from just a different era, a different time. How do you think that environment, helped shape you as a person? Especially because you talk about how, when you were doing boxing and stuff, you just kind of fell back on that natural, just instinct kind of sort of thing. Do you reckon that started when you were growing up?
Yeah, I think, it's been the beauty of this whole process. It's been such a therapeutic journey, writing my book, because I've had to delve back into, my childhood, remember things that I never really thought of for a long time. The scars on my legs, for example. But I found that whole journey shaped me in who I was and who I am. Coming from, a low decile area, low economic, a low income household. I grew up in a housing commission house. Mom and dad slept in the lounge room. We had no wallpapers on the wall. You know, the whole thought of, you know, being able to step back and see that, and then see the struggles that my mom and dad went through, where it wasn't, you know, I grew up, I never seen anyone that held a position of prominence, in a position where, you know, they hired people. For example, you know, everyone I knew, my mom, dad, aunties, uncles, grandma, grandfathers, they all just worked, you know, low income jobs. So in my household, it wasn't about thriving, it was about surviving, you know. So my mom and dad, or dad, never sat me down and said, look, son, if you are to make it in a high pressured environment, this is what you need to do. You know, this is how you need to act. It was, man, how are we going to pay the rent this week? You know, it was that type of buzz. So all of those experiences shaped me into understanding that, for me at a time, education wasn't at the forefront of my mind, because I didn't think that I could ever come, or that would ever end up helping me in my journey. It was sports. Because why? Because I seen people of color playing professional sports, and I thought, wow, I'm actually good at this. This is what I can do. And if I can play on TV, then I can buy mom a house, you know, with wallpaper on it. That type of real simplistic attitude really drove me to the heights that I got to. But then, you know, there was only so much that way of thinking could give me. And I got there at a real young age. And then I had other struggles that I had to deal with. And the beauty of my life is I've learned from experiences, you know, the good and the bad. And it shaped me into the man I am today, you know. So inshallah, God willing, a few people read that book and take a few things from it and help them in their journey.
Yeah, look, I want to talk to you about the struggles you had with self-esteem, just because, I mean, from the outside, you know, from a young age, you were a fantastic sports player. You excelled on the field. You just felt like you were in that natural space. But I love how you talked about how you said you just wish you had a magic wand so you could wave self-belief into Pacifica and Maori youngsters. You know, why is it so many people, so many Pacifica young players, Maori players, why do they struggle with this? What's going on there?
You know, I can't speak like collectively, but you know, from my journey, and what I think it is a key element to it is what we see growing up. What I've saw growing up. Like I said, I didn't see anyone in a position of prominence. You know, from a sports playing point of view, we see people now is more than 50% make up the NRL and rugby people on the field. You know, this is at a professional level. So we see that and we see, whoa, you know, growing up, I connect with that. I see my people doing that. I can thrive in that space. Growing up, if you don't, all you see is laborers. You know, for me, I come from a household of all painters. My dad was a painter. My uncles are painters. My grandfathers were painters. You know, so I subconsciously, it's ingrained in me that, you know, I can be a great painter, paint houses for a living. You know, I didn't see anyone that worked on the board. I didn't see anyone that was a boss of an organization or, you know, any of that. So I feel like that has a big part to play in it. Because subconsciously, that's all. If that's all you ever see, you know, that's all you ever think that you can be, until, you know, like there's a chapter in the book, you know better, you'll do better once you know better. That's why it resonates with me so much, because once I hit, you know, from experiences, looking back now, once the experience I've gained being in a professional sporting place, is that, you know, although it's tough, we can achieve more. And that's by putting a vulnerability hat on and saying, look, if I have the discipline daily needed, we can be great at something else, not just what we grew up seeing. You know, collectively, we come from low income households, a lot of us, and that's all we ever see. You know, a lot of us have families or fathers or grandmothers and grandfathers that come from the islands, and they set up shop here, working as a bus driver, working as, you know, low income jobs. And if that's all we've ever seen, then I guess that's all we kind of think that we can do. But now we're in a great place where people are actually talking about that, actually trying to be better through knowledge, not just sport. And it's beautiful to see. That's why I'm always vocal and a massive advocate for our people striving to be better. You know, we might not be great at that space at the start, but at least we're trying to do that and get into those type of spaces.
Yeah, it's so wonderful, particularly because that's those so many people from that background have just got so much to offer. The fact that we are seeing them come out a bit more and be able to just express themselves. It's no longer just about, oh yeah, the space of sport. There's more to it than that. There's more than just that different background. It's great that we're seeing that more.
Yeah, and I think that it's not just sports, it's us in general as people, you know, you got to look back throughout history from, I guess, colonization. You know what I mean? Colonization.
Yeah.
It made a big divide in the social system where we stand collectively as people. You know, for us as islanders, Samoans, for example, a lot of us were brought over to fill those low income jobs, you know, the crappy jobs, so to speak. Then came the dawn raids, and a lot of us were just knocked on the door and sent back home after we done what they wanted us to do, you know. So it's one of growth. Growth comes from, for me, it's come from understanding a bit of history, going through the educational process, but then experience and putting myself out there and putting myself into very uncomfortable situations, but then also learning from the wrongs that I've done in my life too. So it's brought me to where I am now, and I understand that, and I understand that you know, there's a reason that collectively we have low self-esteem issues. We are where we are, I guess, in the food chain, but with hardship comes opportunities, you know, and that's just from the daily grind of trying to be better.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great that, you know, that you're telling this story here, because hopefully it can encourage other people to also like go and say, hey, if he can do that, so can I, which is such a beautiful, positive thing. So we'll kind of talk about that space, because you mentioned that you had some troubles of your own, because you went, you know, you signed with the Bulldogs and you had a couple of years there, but then 2008 you made the move to France, and you talk about this time, that first year with Toulon, as a really tough time in your life, because you were in the process of kind of rediscovering who you were. You'd also, you know, you're in the kind of, it wasn't like just a switch over when you kind of discovered and became converted to Islam. You talk a lot about your time with Tangu Umaga and Johnny Wilkinson then, and was it a sense that it suddenly became not just a focus on Sonny Bill, the footballer, but also Sonny Bill, the person that you were?
Yeah, that was the beauty of that whole experience, you know, on the field and off the field. I feel like looking back at it now, I was just blessed in so many ways. I went through a lot of hardship, especially in that first year, with, you know, obviously what happened with the Dogs and the mental stuff that the struggles that I was going through. But it was beautiful in the sense that, you know, I came from a bubble in Australia where, you know, walk out the door and everyone knows who you are. You go to the petrol station, go to the supermarket, everyone knows who you are. Everyone's talking about footy and that. Then you go to Europe, no one even knows who you are. No one gives a damn who you are. You know, there's no athlete privileges there whatsoever. So that in itself was a kick in the mouth to my ego. But it was beautiful because it gave me that growth and understanding that life's more than just sport. Life's more than just rugby or league. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then on field, you know, it was a struggle to learn a new game. I'd never played a game. I played one game of rugby in school, but that was just to get out of school that day. You know what I mean? But I grew up in the league household. We were a hearty league. We despised rugby union. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
being able to go over there and learn a new game, but have rugby mentors like I have rugby mentors of two of arguably the game's best ever players, and Tangu Umaga and Johnny Wilkinson was phenomenal. It was, you know, I can honestly say I learned rugby from the best. So that whole journey that 2 to 3 years that I spent over there was amazing. It was, I was finding out myself in more ways than none. I was getting stronger as a Muslim, as a man of faith, but then I was also learning a new game, and all of them everything just came into one, culminating in me giving me the confidence to be like, you know what? Not only can I play this game, I can thrive in this game with the best of them. Let's go back and see if we can make the All Blacks,
Yeah. It felt like it was a real positive, just building good time for you, and especially like in terms of just becoming Sonny Bill, the person that you look at yourself and you're like, I love this guy. This is the guy that I value, or this is the person who it's that self-esteem that from that time you learned to just love yourself more than anything else.
Exactly, and for me with my struggles that's why I connect so much with what Islam has taught me, that it's the daily grind. You can't just have that gratitude or that empathy or hard work or discipline for 1 day or 2 days at a time. It's it's a process. I still have my struggles now. I still have a lot of struggles, but I found that when I didn't have those boundaries, when I was just a member, a fun-going, happy member of society, the things that was given to me on a silver plate, I struggled with, bro. I struggled with. You know what I mean? I don't know whether it was the ego or whether it was the lack of discipline or whatever, but I still had those traits that my mom gave me as a youngster. And alhamdulillah, mom's accepted Islam. She's reverted to Islam now because she understands the simplicity of it. She the things that she gave me as a youngster really suited what Islam taught me as well. So yeah, I'm really happy where I'm at this stage of my life. Grateful for everything I have. Grateful for my little lovings that I have in my life, as in my kids. I've got a loving wife. But I understand that the struggles are still there, bro.
Yeah.
They don't go away, man. They don't go away.
Yeah. But the struggle is a big part of what makes the reward so much better, because you have to work and earn that place to get there, which is wonderful. And I think this is a good point to talk about your time playing for the All Blacks, because I mean I'm extremely conflicted on one hand, because All Blacks are the pinnacle, man. They're the best. They've produced some of the most beautiful rugby that I've ever seen. But on the other hand, it's often been against teams that I really like. So it's in terms of that sport though, like, talk me through exactly what is it the All Blacks have that other teams don't, because it often is the fact that I'm a Wallabies fan. I'm still buzzing from Sunday night as well, but just that consistency and that sense of just trusting yourself and not thinking about it. It's just all natural. What is it that the All Blacks have that other teams don't?
Depth. That's what I believe. They got depth. Like, we could roll out three first 15s, and still mix it with the best of them. Do you know what I mean? So I think that comes from, like what I touched on earlier, there's over 50% of players are of Māori or Pacific Islander background that play the game in New Zealand. Arguably the greatest rugby playing country in the world, arguably, from a depth point of view. For instance, look at a guy like David Havili. He wasn't picked in the side for 4 years. He comes in, he's, up there with the world's best at the moment. So that's when you have that depth, I guess, and predominantly when, I guess, let's talk about Australia and New Zealand, the difference. New Zealand, every public school plays rugby union, so it's predominantly that working class background players, sometimes that come from the same type of area or households that I grew up playing it, and it gives you that, I guess, more steely kind of gratitude look in life, just for the little things, where in Australia, predominantly, it's played in a private school household. You know what I mean? So like for example, when I look at my kids, like, I love my kids, but the things that they get to the things that I had as chalk and cheese growing up. You know what I mean? So I always try and keep that gratitude or remind them to be grateful for what I have. But naturally, you know, you're not as grateful for the little things that one might have that came from that type of scenario. But then you have that also on top of it, the playing pool is just a lot bigger in New Zealand than Australia. You know, you look at the predominantly public schools play what? Rugby league in Australia. Australia's, you know, throughout history has been probably the greatest team to play rugby league. So if you could flip that on its head in Australia, then, you know, that would help a lot with the depth. But when we're talking about New Zealand, it has that depth. A lot of the Pacific Islanders that come and play the game, we make up 50% of the game, like I said. God-given physical attributes are suited for this game to thrive, you know. So that's what makes New Zealand so good, is that depth. Look, for example, the Barrett boys all playing for the All Blacks in the weekend. They grew up in the backyard playing together. You know, that where Geordie Barrett just about scored that crazy try when Bowden Barrett puts up the bomb, he catches it, you know, puts it down, just, you know, like, that's what makes New Zealand so good, is the depth. These kids are doing these things at such a young age, and we're seeing they're getting the fruits of that at an international level.
Yeah, it's just, I love that it's just instinctual rugby, or it's just trusting yourself rugby, because you've had that feeling ingrained from such a young age, which makes it fantastic rugby to watch. But also just rugby that it leans into what we aspire to with the game, which I think is wonderful.
Well, when I grew up, bro, I grew up playing footy with my brother, my sisters, my cousins, just down at the park, because that's what we could afford, you know, just for footy boy, let's go down. That's where, like, offloads, try to do some crazy offloads or try and do some shoulder charges. You know, that's where all of that, you know, crazy type of footy comes from. Just playing at the park with the boys, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk a lot about boxing as well, and how, like, boxing has also shaped up compared to, like, union or league. Like, on one hand, you talk about boxing in this book as being just a really important part of your life in terms of making you, it's like helping you look after you. But also you've talked about how boxing matches have been some of the toughest experiences of your sporting career, like that fight you had with the White Buffalo, with Francois Botha. Where does boxing fit for you in your life?
Yeah, it's kind of like a way of life. I'm still doing boxing. Can't wait for the lockdown to finish so I can get back in the ring. But, you know, throughout my career, I gave 3 sports my whole heart, gave it everything. Now, that's why I want to see where I can get to in 24 months with boxing. Because then I can actually just sit back and say, you know, alhamdulillah, I've given everything a go. And, you know, if you were to say that at a time, I would be the New Zealand heavyweight champion of the world, or New Zealand heavyweight champ, it would be crazy to think, you know. If I was to say that I'll win the WBA international belt against such an experienced fighter like the White Buffalo, that would be crazy to think of as well. So some of the greatest sporting memories for me have been in the ring, especially in those 2 experiences. Especially winning that New Zealand title was amazing, because, you know, my pop fought for the cruiserweight title at one stage. He lost, but you know, it's still obviously in the blood, the boxing.
Yeah, which is great, and I can't wait to see how you go once we get out of that, once we are out of lockdown. In terms of actually kind of moving out of that sporting environment, in terms of league and union and stuff, I'd imagine, you know, you mentioned a lot earlier in the book about how it's not a you know, a career that lasts forever. It has a very limited lifespan. Now that where do you sit now, having had a tiny bit of time away from that game? Where does that time sit for you now? Are you still like, yeah, that was great, or are you always just looking forward to whatever you can do next?
Looking forward, bro.
Beautiful.
Looking forward. I don't really, people have been asked, you missed the game. I don't, you know, I don't. Yeah, I still enjoy watching it and that, but for me, I think I talk about it in the book, where you can have those massive highs. You win, you know, win NRL rings, World Cups, Super Rugby titles, even, you know, heavyweight New Zealand heavyweight title, and it's like the next day, it's an amazing feeling. Don't get me wrong, because of the effort you put into it. But the next day, it's like, what's next? You know.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always about what's next, and you know, I don't know what I'm going to be doing in the future. Okay, I'm doing this commentary gig, and bro, it's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable, but you know, I'm just trying my best, and you know, I can't say that I'll be doing it forever, but whatever I do, I'll be giving my whole heart, and that starts with, you know, just being the simple message of just being grateful for what I have every day when I wake up. You know, I look at my kids before they start screaming and shitting in their nappies. You know, I'm just grateful for that. You know, I'm grateful for another day of life, grateful to be able to eat my food, grateful for the struggles that I'm going to face, because the struggles will remind me of how good the good times are. You know what I mean? So that's my mindset. It's just that simplistic type of mindset, that type of buzz.
Yeah, it is. It's a great mindset to approach life with, because you now have so many other opportunities that are available to you, that life can give you. I find it so funny that, you know, that commentary space, like on Saturday night, you were talking about how you couldn't look when Quade was taking that kick. I had to mute the thing. I had to shut my eyes. I was in the exact same space that you were, man. I was like, I can't look because it was so good. But in terms of what's happening next for you on your journey, what are you up to next? Where to next for Sonny Bill?
Oh, well, I still got this boxing stuff happening. I think I'm signed on for the rest of this year, maybe next year with the commentary stuff. So I've kind of got that stuff locked in. But besides that, it's just kids, bro. Kids and my faith, being with my feeder, just trying to be better. You know what I mean? Trying to be better. So that's about it, my bro.
That's good, though.
Looking forward to the release of this book too. So hopefully get some good feedback from it. We'll see how it goes. It was supposed to be picture books, just all pictures in the book, but, you know, got some writing in there.
Well, I reckon a lot of folks are going to enjoy this book. It's a really great book, mate, and you should be really proud of it.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah. I'm aware that, you know, we're pretty much out of time, and you're a very, very busy man. Lots of things to do, people to see. But one last question I want to ask you, man. Are you happy?
I'm happy, bro. I'm happy.
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong. There's times when I get sad. I had this mad conversation. I forgot who it was, and it might have been with Quade the last couple of days, but it might have been about Quade. But it was just like, I know where my home base is. For me, it's my faith. For me, it's my 5 daily prayers. For me, it's stepping back from the craziness of this world and just saying, alhamdulillah, grateful for what I have, you know? So, yeah, I'm happy, but I know that the sadness will come, the struggles will come. But, yeah, I know where my home base is.
That's great. It's so good to hear as well. I could chat to you all day, man, but unfortunately we're out of time. Sonny Bill, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, mate. Thank you so much.
My daughter's just losing it out the back there, so yeah, perfect
mate,
timing, bro.
It's the lockdown world we're in. But thank you so much, Sonny Bill Williams. Sonny Bill Williams, You Can't Stop the Sun from Shining is published by Shed Australia, and you can order your copy right now from Booktopia.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you for listening to the Booktopia podcast channel. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us on SoundCloud and iTunes for free and get access to hundreds of author discussions, book analysis pieces, and more. Or, if your eyes need a workout, head to Booktopia TV on YouTube. Don't forget, for all books featured in this podcast and for access to a whole bunch of other fun content on our blog, head to Booktopia, Australia's local bookstore, at booktopia.com.au.